okay, goal is farmers on 10 acres of land and the
Farming
Congo.
with oxen.
With oxen.
Oh, we don't care which country. But anyway,
Any country, so
any country.
Are
I
you-
mean, farming desert sand dune doesn't really help anybody.
are you
but
interested in other continents as well?
Yeah, all over.
You're interested in going global pretty soon?
Yes, I think other continents are. I mean, the plan is it's just a model.
10 acres, so what, a family, like 4 people per 10 acres?
No, it's a family. So however big the family is, and 10 acres is not a locked in stone piece. I mean, if you just have a huge family, then obviously you have a little bit more land. But the point is there is to find something where people can live a decent, middle class life.
Are you making assumptions that this will be okay, so big agriculture takes over all this kind of stuff. The mechanism, so you're considering that by saying, okay, but this economic model is going to be robust enough that they're not going to suck them up? Or how do you see that?
No, I mean, anything can be crushed, but I just don't see the economic model of big ag surviving in the era of high oil prices without serious government subsidy.
So you're looking
I think governments are cutting their subsidies, and I think they're going to look at agricultural subsidies in Europe and the United States before too long. And when they do,
so you have an assumption of...
I have an assumption of a future
people.
world. I have an assumption that it will affect. Yes, I have an assumption of peak oil.
Okay.
I guess that would be a very safe way to put it. I don't know. I researched the subject pretty clearly, and I see everything playing out, as predicted. So
Yeah.
I don't see things turning around. I mean, maybe you have other knowledge
So
that I don't have.
why do you... Well, I personally think that biomass can fuel all the agriculture that's sustainably harvested.
Yeah, I've looked into that pretty substantially, and can't see biomass playing that role. I mean, I just can't see that type of model, because I can't see the scaling up of biomass to anything close to the refinery levels that we get with an oil refinery. And a biomass refinery will be, much smaller in scale.
What about pelletized biomass, modern steam engine?
No, what we're talking about is taking an energy source that is very concentrated in energy and in one spot, and refining it.
I'm just curious why...
As opposed to something which you reduce the energy ROEI intensely when you farm a huge area of land, have to collect all of that. You can't then ship that mass very far in order to transform it into
No, but
fuel.
in a model of an economy where the fuel is produced locally.
I mean, maybe in some instances, but in theory, yes, if you want to remove a lot of people from the planet. I just don't think that we should be... I see that if your whole point is tillage of land, right, you're far better off using shit land to have grass on to be eaten by cows, and then have the cows plow your land up and provide a fertilizer for your fields, than you are to have very good farmland that could be growing food, growing fuel.
What's your consideration for perennial crops, like perennial agriculture of tree crops in this whole mix?
Oh, I think tree crops are great. I mean, if people can figure out how to work it, we just don't have a long history as a species of doing that. I mean, if we're talking fruit trees, that's one thing. But if you're talking
trees.
just like trees for wood, for lumber, that didn't really start until Germany in, what was it, the late 17 or early 1800s is when the first time humans started to have sustainable forestry. Until then, it was basically go out and cut what you do and don't replant. I mean, that's as far as I know the history. That's what I learned in college.
What about
It wasn't until the 20th century in the United States that we started that.
How about hazelnut, chestnut polycultures, like for the corn soy replacement?
Yeah, I mean, if you can do stuff like that, it's just when you're talking about running the world economy, it's a little different than a village. I mean, a village can do whatever it wants to do. What's going to run the world economy is a different thing, and that's more what I'm concerned with. What's a viable solution to producing food for 10 billion people? And I don't see us getting there on tractors.
Are are you assuming, when you, in the scenario that you're proposing, you're still assuming centralization of production, like the farms?
No, I can see that's the beauty of ox power is you can do decentralization. You can't do decentralization with tractors, at least not currently.
Okay.
I mean, it's you need to get the steel, you need to get the parts, you need to. I mean, maybe some of the things you're working on, you know, it can be one thing, but I guess for me, when planning, I like the general rule that if 5,000 people aren't doing it somewhere in the world, it's on the drawing board. It's not proved. So once 5,000 people are doing something, you can say, because you can have a perfect. There's a book called Perfected Yet Rejected that basically goes about a fantastic piece of agricultural equipment and how nobody's using it. And it does everything. It does everything that, you know, an agricultural piece of equipment should do.
What is that piece of equipment?
It plows. You know, it's a connector for a cart. You can hook a cart on it. You can hook, you know, whatever it's called that runs the engine. You know, to run other things. Yeah, PTO. So you can do everything with this. And they developed it for draft animal power for Africa. And the book is essentially about going around the world and trying to figure out, hearing stories about how successful this is, because it does great in all the field tests, and then going out to actually see how it's working in communities, and I can't find it anywhere. Nobody's using it. And so it can be great in theory, but
what practice it not? So
yeah,
ideas are cheap, practice is dear. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just in general, like we're talking about scaling, it's about the ideas are cheap.
I've gotten a lot of really good ideas that we haven't been able to scale up, or people aren't adapting. I mean, you know, I came up with the idea that we should get people cooking using something other than wood in our area. And so we have a lot of rice hulls, and so I said rice hull stoves sound like a great idea. I was convinced utterly. And we tried this, and people didn't like them, and they didn't use them. They'd rather cook with wood. And I was like, no, this is efficient. It's, you know, da-da-da-da. It doesn't use resources. It's much cheaper for you. You don't have to go out and walk through the woods and, you know, walk 6,000 miles to find some wood. And people just weren't interested.
How many people do you have on the operations right now as far as the growers?
So, apart from growers?
No, just growers.
Oh, just growers? Yeah, so farmers, you know, I would say around 1,500 right now, because it's the dry season.
I know you say 5,000, it's the...
No,
have you reached the 5,000?
So 5,000, no, we have not. That's why I'm not saying we should have a
saying-
blueprint, because we don't have 5,000 yet, so I'm not even living up to my own standards.
Once you get 5,000, you're going to consider the blueprint much more seriously?
Once we get 5,000, but we'll probably be around 5,000 or 6,000 when I'll say, now I think we have something. Until we're at that stage, I don't feel like I can tell people this is what you should be doing, because I wouldn't, if somebody told me you should be doing this, how many people are doing it? 1,000? No, not yet.
So your goal is within 5 years to get to 20K?
That's our goal, within 5 years to get to 20K.
And what's your longer term goal than that? Are you speculating on that, or just taking it easy?
Yeah, for me, I prefer that draft animal power become the dominant source of agriculture in the world. I think it's sustainable.
Does anyone else
and
endorse that so far that you've seen, or?
I don't
So
know if
your
they'd go that
funders-
far.
Do the funders actually support that idea, or they?
One of them in particular really sees it for Africa as being a big thing. I think it's a hard step for people to say. You know, there's a lot of technologies that people are very happy to throw in Africa, and then when you say, "Would you use that at your house?" They're like,
No way.
"Kidding? Really? You know, composting toilet? Are you mad?" I know some people who walk the walk with that who say, like, "Yeah, I do." But you know, I think the reason why I'm doing it is because it works, not because I'm preachy. Because in the U.S. we totally have no right to be preachy on anything. We waste more energy and resources than anybody.
So right now you're simply limited by the number of people that can use draft power, or is it the draft animals themselves?
It's just that we just started the project earlier this year, and the draft animal part of it. We just started.
Wait, you didn't have draft power before?
We had some experiments with trying to do it, but it was, I mean, we couldn't develop the resources and so on, and now we have the resources, and we have gone big into it and brought Tillers International earlier this year to train oxen.
Wow, and so before it was all manual labor?
Yep. Oh, well, no. It's all
success
manual labor, but we use tractors as well. You know, we use tractors as well. There's, you know, for what we were doing after a certain scale, just people weren't willing to reclaim this kind of land and till it up and it just become much better to use the tractors. But it's very, very expensive.